The cake was already on the kitchen counter. 19 candles, still in the box. Blue frosting. My name written slightly crooked because my dad always did it himself. Guests had started arriving when my sister began crying in the hallway. Not quiet tears. Sharp, panicked sobs that echoed through the house. Within minutes, my mother turned to the guests and said, "We're so sorry. We'll have to cancel. Tonight isn't a good night." Someone asked what happened. My father sighed and said, "Family comes first." I stood there, holding the lighter. No one looked at me. Have you ever watched your own celebration disappear while you were still in the room? I blew out candles that were never lit. The guests left quietly. Paper plates stacked. Balloons still taped to the wall. The smell of sugar and warm pizza hanging in the air like something unfinished. My sister, Alina, was locked in her bedroom. "She can't handle the noise," my mother explained softly, as if that settled everything. My father carried the untouched cake to the fridge. "We'll celebrate another time," he said. Another time. That phrase had followed me my whole life. When I got accepted into a university 3 hours away, my mom said, "Let's not talk about that now. Your sister is stressed about finals." When I won a small art competition in high school, my dad suggested we skip the announcement dinner because Alina didn't place. When I asked for help buying a used car at 17, they said, "Money's tight right now." 2 months later, they paid for Alina's private dance workshop because she needed an outlet. Needed. I had always been the one who understood. The mature one. The flexible one. Have you ever realized that being called mature often just means you're expected to sacrifice quietly? That night, after the house settled into silence, I sat at the kitchen table alone. The blue frosting had smudged slightly when my dad shoved the cake into the fridge. My name was barely readable. I didn't cry. I felt something else. Clarity. My phone buzzed with texts from friends who had been turned away at the door. "Are you okay? What happened?" I typed the same reply to each of them. "Family stuff. It's fine." It wasn't fine. But I had been trained to smooth things over before anyone else could. Around midnight, my parents knocked lightly on my bedroom door. "Sweetheart," my mom said gently, "we know this is disappointing." Disappointing. That word made it sound like a rain delay, not a pattern. "Alina's having a hard time," she continued. "We need you to be patient." Patient. I nodded, because that's what I always did. My father added, "You're strong. You can handle it." Strong. Another label that meant silence. When they left, I stared at the ceiling in the dark. 19. Legally an adult. Still asking permission to matter. How many more milestones would be postponed in the name of keeping peace? For the first time, I didn't feel angry at my sister. I felt invisible. And that realization was heavier than any meltdown. The next morning, the balloons were still taped to the wall. Deflated slightly. Edges curling. No one mentioned my birthday. My mom moved through the kitchen quietly, making tea. My dad read the newspaper like nothing had shifted. Alina came downstairs around noon, eyes swollen but calm. "I'm sorry about last night," she said softly. Her voice was careful. Fragile. "It's okay," I replied automatically. And that was the problem. It was always okay. My mom reached across the counter and squeezed Alina's hand. "You can't control your emotions," she told her gently. "You're sensitive." Sensitive. The same word they used when she skipped school for 3 days after a minor argument with a friend. The same word when she refused to attend my high school graduation because the crowd made her anxious. Sensitive meant accommodated. Strong meant postponed. Later that week, I overheard my parents talking in the living room. "We can't let her spiral," my dad said. "She was overwhelmed," my mom replied. "It's not like a birthday is a big deal." Not a big deal. I stood at the top of the stairs and listened. Have you ever heard yourself being minimized without anyone lowering their voice? I didn't confront them. I didn't argue. Instead, I went to my room and opened my laptop. I searched for studio apartments near campus. I wasn't dramatic about it. I didn't slam doors or pack bags. I just started looking. That afternoon, Alina knocked on my door. "Mom says we'll reschedule your birthday," she said. "Maybe next month." Next month. My 19th birthday would only happen once. "I'm okay," I told her. She hesitated. "You're not mad at me, right?" There it was. The part where I was supposed to reassure her. "No," I said honestly. I wasn't mad. I was done adjusting. That weekend, I took a shift at the cafe where I worked part-time. I stayed late, wiping down counters slowly, breathing in the smell of coffee grounds and detergent. My manager mentioned an opening in the small apartment above the shop. "It's basic," she said. "But affordable." I nodded. Basic sounded peaceful. At home, the family calendar still had my birthday circled in blue marker. No one erased it. They just ignored it. And for the first time, I started imagining what life would feel like if I wasn't the one absorbing every emotional shock. The pattern became obvious once I stopped defending it. Alina's moods dictated the temperature of the house. If she woke up anxious, plans shifted. If she felt overwhelmed, conversations stopped. If she cried, everything paused. When I felt overwhelmed, I was told to take a walk. One afternoon, I came home to find my parents assembling a new desk in the living room. For Alina's art therapy, my mom explained. She needs a creative space. I nodded slowly. 3 years earlier, I had asked if we could convert the storage room into a small workspace for my design projects. "There's no room," my dad had said back then. Apparently, there was now. Have you ever watched resources rearrange themselves when the right person needs them? I started noticing the details. The way my mom checked Alina's schedule twice before making plans, but forgot mine entirely. The way my dad praised Alina's small progress like it was a breakthrough, while my achievements were met with quiet nods. It wasn't cruelty. It was hierarchy. And I had accepted my place in it for too long. That night, I filled out the rental application for the apartment above the cafe. Name. Age. Employment. Emergency contact. I paused at that last line. For a second, I wondered if I should still list my parents. Then I wrote my own number instead. When the approval email came 2 days later, I didn't announce it. I didn't gather the family in the living room for a conversation. I simply started packing. One box at a time. Books first. Then clothes. Then the framed photo from my high school graduation that had been tucked behind other pictures on the shelf. My mom noticed the boxes after dinner. "What's all this?" she asked. "I found a place near campus," I said calmly. "I'm moving next week." Silence filled the kitchen. My dad frowned. "Is this about the birthday?" "No," I replied. It wasn't just about that. It was about everything before it. Alina looked between us, confused. "You don't have to leave," she said softly. Maybe I didn't. But staying meant continuing to shrink. Have you ever realized that leaving quietly can say more than arguing ever could? I taped the last box shut that night. And for the first time in years, I felt something steady inside me. Not anger. Space. The morning I moved out, the house was unusually quiet. No dramatic goodbye. No argument. Just the sound of packing tape tearing and cardboard shifting against hardwood floors. My dad stood by the doorway while I carried the first box to my car. "You're overreacting," he said gently. "Families go through phases." Phases. As if 19 years of quiet adjustment were seasonal. "I'm not angry," I replied. That seemed to unsettle him more than if I had shouted. My mom hovered near the kitchen counter, arms folded. "You know your sister needs stability right now," she said. "I know," I answered. "And leaving doesn't help." "Maybe not for them. But it would for me." Alina stayed upstairs until the last box. When I walked back in for my suitcase, she stood at the top of the stairs. "Are you going to visit?" she asked. Her voice wasn't manipulative. Just uncertain. "Yes," I said. But something in my tone must have changed, because she didn't look reassured. The drive to the cafe apartment was only 15 minutes. Still, it felt longer. When I unlocked the small door above the shop, the scent of fresh paint greeted me. The place was simple. One window. Narrow kitchen. A bed that folded into the wall. Basic. Peaceful. I set my boxes down and sat on the floor for a moment, listening. No muffled crying from behind a bedroom door. No whispered conversations deciding who mattered more that day. Just quiet. Have you ever realized how loud your old environment was only after you leave it? The first week passed without much reaction from my parents. They texted practical questions. "Did you get your mail forwarded? Do you need help with groceries?" Not, "How are you?" Not, "We miss you." Alina called twice. "I had a rough day," she said during one of the calls. "Mom keeps asking where you put things." I could picture it clearly. I had always managed small systems in the house. Bills filed. Appointments noted. Groceries restocked. Without me, tiny inconveniences began surfacing. Nothing dramatic. Just cracks. One evening, my dad stopped by unexpectedly. He stood awkwardly in my doorway, taking in the narrow space. "You could have stayed," he said. "I could have," I agreed. He looked around again, as if trying to measure what I had given up. "You were the steady one," he added quietly. I didn't answer. Because that had been the problem. Steady meant absorbing. Strong meant silent. As he left, I noticed something in his expression I hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. And back at home, without me buffering the tension, their picture-perfect rhythm was beginning to shift. The first real crack showed up 2 weeks after I moved out. Alina had another meltdown. But this time, there was no birthday to cancel. No event to rearrange. No one to absorb it. I found out because my mom called me late at night. She locked herself in the bathroom, she said, her voice strained. She's refusing to come out. I sat on the edge of my small apartment bed, the hum of the cafe refrigerator below vibrating faintly through the floorboards. "Did you try giving her space?" I asked. "We can't just give her space," my dad's voice cut in from the background. "She needs structure." Structure. It was the first time I'd heard that word used about her. I closed my eyes for a moment. For years, when Alina spiraled, I stepped in. I talked to her. I distracted her. I helped her breathe through it. Not because anyone asked me directly. Because it was expected. "She used to calm down when you talked to her," my mom said quietly. There it was. The boundary crossing. They weren't asking how I was adjusting to living alone. They weren't acknowledging that I had just left home at 19. They were asking me to resume my role from a distance. Have you ever realized someone still expects your labor even after you leave the room? "I'm not there anymore," I said gently. Silence. She's your sister, my dad replied. I know, I answered. And I love her. That part was true. But I can't manage the house from across town. The words felt steady. Not harsh. Just honest. My mom exhaled slowly. It's just harder without you. Of course it was. I had been the emotional bridge. The quiet mediator. The extra adult in the room. When I hung up, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. Back at their house, without me cushioning every tension, small arguments started surfacing. Alina and my dad clashed more often. My mom grew tired faster. There were no more convenient reschedulings. No more postponed conversations. The picture-perfect life required invisible effort to maintain. And I had been that effort. A few days later, my dad called again. We didn't realize how much you handled, he said. That sentence landed heavier than an apology. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was factual. Have you ever waited years just to be acknowledged for the work you did quietly? I didn't gloat. I didn't say I told you so. I simply listened. And for the first time, they were experiencing the imbalance without me correcting it. The calls became less urgent after that. Not because things were suddenly perfect at home. But because they were learning to handle them. One evening, my mom called just to talk. No crisis. No emergency. I made your favorite soup today, she said softly. Habit. I smiled faintly. How was it? I asked. Too much salt, she admitted. She used to ask me to taste it before serving. Tiny systems. Tiny supports. Gone. Have you ever noticed how people only see your contribution once they have to replace it? Alina texted me a few days later. I started therapy, she wrote. Mom says it's time. Time. That word lingered. For years, her emotions had been managed inside the house, rearranging everyone else's schedule. Now, without me absorbing the overflow, they were facing it directly. Not punishing her. Just addressing it. I visited one Sunday afternoon. The house felt different. Quieter, but not tense. Alina was in the living room sketching. My dad was fixing a loose cabinet hinge. My mom was folding laundry. Ordinary sounds. When they saw me, there was no dramatic reunion. Just softer eye contact. We've been adjusting, my dad said carefully. I can see that, I replied. My mom hesitated. We relied on you too much, she said. It wasn't fair. There it was. Not a sweeping apology. Not a speech. Just acknowledgement. I didn't rush to forgive or reassure. I simply nodded. Because forgiveness wasn't the point. Balance was. That evening, as I drove back to my small apartment above the cafe, I felt something settle inside me. I hadn't left to punish them. I had left to breathe. And now, without me buffering every meltdown and smoothing every conflict, they were building their own structure. A month after I moved out, my parents invited me to dinner. Not to reschedule my birthday. Not to fix anything. Just dinner. I hesitated before answering. Have you ever been invited back somewhere and wondered if the air would feel the same? When I walked into the house, it looked unchanged. The same couch. The same framed family photos. The same calendar on the wall. But something subtle had shifted. Alina greeted me first. Not with guilt. Not with fragility. With steadiness. I'm working on things, she said quietly. For myself. I nodded. That's good. Dinner was simple. No balloons. No symbolic cake. Just conversation. My dad asked about my classes. My mom asked about my apartment. No one interrupted. No one redirected the focus. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat. "We handled your birthday wrong," he said. The words weren't dramatic. They were deliberate. "We chose the easiest path," he continued. "And that meant choosing you last." That was the closest they had ever come to naming it. I didn't rush to fill the silence afterward. I let it sit. Have you ever realized that acknowledgement is more powerful when you don't demand it? "I'm not leaving the family," I said calmly. "I just won't carry it alone anymore." My mom nodded. "We understand." And for once, it felt like they might. That night, back in my apartment, I lit a single candle on a cupcake I had picked up from the cafe downstairs. 19 had passed quietly. But I wasn't grieving it anymore. I wasn't waiting for permission to matter. Moving out hadn't destroyed their picture-perfect life. It had revealed how much invisible work kept it standing. And now, without me shrinking to maintain it, they were finally learning to hold their own weight. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Like this video if you've ever chosen space over silence. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the first year I stopped postponing myself.